My mother left me at a fire station as a baby and disappeared. Now she's taking me to court for her share of the $15 million I earned as a self-made entrepreneur. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, say hello below, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything. Let's continue. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, the kind that requires a signature. My assistant, Alice, handed it to me with concern etched across his face. This looks serious, Kennedy. I ripped it open, standing in my corner office overlooking the city skyline. My tech company had just been valued at $15 million. 5 years of 18-hour days, maxed credit cards, and sleeping on friends' couches had finally paid off. I was 28 and untouchable. Then I read the plaintiff's name, Diane Wilson. My birth mother. The woman who'd wrapped me in a yellow blanket 30 years ago and left me at Fire Station 47 with nothing but a note that said, "I can't." The woman whose face I'd never seen, whose voice I'd never heard, whose existence had been a ghost haunting every birthday, every Mother's Day, every graduation where I sat alone. She was suing me for parental support and restitution, claiming I owed her half my wealth because she'd given me life. My hands trembled. Gilbert touched my shoulder. "Kennedy, what is it?" "My past just came knocking," I whispered, reading the attorney's name, Beverly Brooks. Aggressive. Expensive. This wasn't some desperate plea. This was calculated warfare. The lawsuit detailed her hardships. How she'd struggled, how she'd thought about me, how she deserved compensation for the sacrifice of childbirth. Not once did it mention abandonment. Not once did it acknowledge the 30 years of silence. I called my lawyer immediately. "Can she actually do this?" I demanded. "Unfortunately," he sighed, "we need to take this seriously. Family law can be unpredictable." My empire was under attack by the woman who'd wanted nothing to do with me. That night I couldn't sleep. I drove to Fire Station 47. Now renovated but still recognizable from the photos the firefighters had taken that February morning. Captain Dalton Langston, who'd found me, had passed away 5 years ago, but his daughter worked there now. "You're that baby," firefighter Lisa Langston said, eyes widening. "Dad talked about you constantly. Wondered how you turned out. He never tried to find me. He respected the system. But he kept the blanket." She disappeared, returning with a yellow blanket, faded and worn. "He washed it once a year on your birthday. February 14th. I pressed it to my face, smelling only detergent and age, searching for something, anything, maternal. Nothing came. "There's something else," Lisa said softly. "Dad wrote journals. He documented everything about that day. The police reports, the investigation, everything." She handed me a weathered notebook. Inside, my origin story unfolded in careful handwriting. The temperature had been 19 degrees. I'd been wrapped inadequately, hypothermic, maybe 3 days old. The note was written on the back of a restaurant receipt. The restaurant was Mabel's Diner, 2 miles from the station. "Police investigated?" I asked. "For 6 months. Your mother vanished. No ID, no trace. They suspected she was young, scared, maybe homeless. But Kennedy..." Lisa hesitated. "Dad always said something felt off. The receipt was dated 3 days after you were born. Someone fed her during those days. Someone knew." A chill ran through me. Did he find out who? "He died before he could finish investigating. But he'd circled a name in here. Diane Wilson. A waitress at Mabel's who quit the day after you were found." The courthouse hallway smelled like floor polish and desperation. My attorney, Richard Park, a man who'd never lost a family law case, walked beside me with confident strides. I wore my power suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored, a reminder that I'd built myself from nothing. Then I saw her. Diane Wilson stood near the courtroom doors, 52 years old, wearing a dress that screamed, "struggling victim." Her attorney, Beverly Brooks, whispered strategies in her ear. But what gutted me was Diane's face. She looked like me. Same wide-set brown eyes. Same sharp cheekbones. Same full lips that pressed together when concentrating. I was staring at a future version of myself, and it felt like swallowing glass. Our eyes met. I expected shame, maybe tears, some flicker of maternal recognition. Instead, she looked me up and down, assessing my worth like I was a stock portfolio. That's her. I whispered to Richard. That's her. Remember, don't engage. Let me handle everything. But Diane approached, ignoring her attorney's restraining hand. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something cheap and cloying. You look successful, she said. Her voice was raspy, a smoker's voice. I always knew you'd do well. Good genes. The audacity punched the air from my lungs. You left me to die in 19-degree weather. I left you somewhere safe, she corrected as if she'd done me a favor. Firefighters are trained for babies. You were fine. Richard stepped between us. Mrs. Wilson, please refrain from contact with my client. He smiled and it was cold. See you inside, daughter. Beverly Brooks was good. She painted Diane as a desperate teenager, 17 and homeless, who'd made an impossible choice to ensure my survival. She showed photographs. Diane looking young and scared in grainy images, though conveniently none were dated or verified. My client gave Kennedy life, Brooks argued passionately. She made the ultimate sacrifice, living every day with the heartbreak of separation. Now, when she's struggling with medical bills and housing insecurity, her biological daughter, worth $15 million, refuses to help. This isn't about money. It's about basic human decency. I wanted to vomit. Richard stood and his voice cut through the courtroom like steel. Your Honor, Ms. Wilson isn't struggling. Our investigation reveals she's worked steadily for 30 years, owns a home in her sister's name, and has a substantial savings account. She didn't seek out Kennedy for reunion or relationship. She sought her out when Kennedy's company valuation became public news 3 months ago. He displayed bank records, property documents, employment history. Diane wasn't destitute. She was opportunistic. Furthermore, Richard continued, Ms. Wilson has 2 other children, Gilbert, 26, and Sandra, 24, whom she raised. She made a choice about which child to keep and which to abandon. That's not sacrifice. That's selection. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I felt like I'd been punched. Other children? She kept other children? Diane's face remained stone. But her attorney scrambled, calling for a recess. In the hallway I confronted Richard. She has other kids. You knew and didn't tell me. I needed your genuine reaction in court, he said carefully. Kennedy, this gets worse. I've located them. They're cooperating with their mother's lawsuit. They believe they deserve a share too. I hired a private investigator named Terry Washington, a woman who could find anyone. Within 48 hours she'd compiled dossiers on my siblings. Gilbert Wilson, 26, worked in middle management for a pharmaceutical company. Married, 1 child, comfortable life. Social media showed family vacations, birthday parties, a normal existence. Sandra Wilson, 24, was a dental hygienist. Single, active social life, close relationship with Diane. Her Instagram was filled with #bestmom posts and mother-daughter brunch photos. They'd had everything I'd been denied. Do they know about me? I asked Terry. They claim they just found out 3 months ago when Diane told them. But I dug deeper. She slid photos across my desk. This is Diane's house. Notice the photos on the wall. I zoomed in. Family portraits spanning decades. Diane, Gilbert, and Sandra smiling in various configurations. Graduations, holidays, weddings. A complete family, -1. Now look at this, Terry said, showing me a photo from 10 years ago. In the background, barely visible, was a newspaper clipping on Diane's refrigerator. The headline read, Local Foster Youth Wins Scholarship. That was me. My first big achievement, covered by the local paper when I was 18. She's known where you were for at least a decade, Terry said quietly. She watched you from a distance. She knew when you succeeded. She just didn't care until you became valuable. I felt something crack inside my chest. This wasn't negligence or poverty or desperation. This was calculated abandonment followed by calculated predation. I want to meet them, I said. Bad idea. I don't care. Set it up. The coffee shop was neutral territory, Gilbert's suggestion. He arrived first, looking uncomfortable in a polo shirt and khakis. Sandra came 5 minutes later, wearing scrubs from work, her natural hair pulled into a professional bun. We were strangers sharing DNA. So, Gilbert started awkwardly, stirring his coffee obsessively. This is weird. Understatement, I replied, studying them both. Gilbert had Diane's nose. Sandra had her laugh. I'd heard it when she'd greeted the barista. Mom said you refused to help her, Sandra said, direct and challenging. That you're being selfish. Your mother, I emphasized the word, left me at a fire station in freezing weather when I was 3 days old. She never looked back. She raised you two, gave you family, love, stability. Then she sued me when I became successful. And you're calling me selfish? Gilbert flinched. Sandra's jaw tightened. She was 17, Gilbert defended weakly. Young, scared. She was 19 when she had you, I interrupted, pulling out Terry's research. She was 22 when she had Sandra. She wasn't a scared teenager. She was an adult who made a choice. Sandra snatched the papers, reading quickly. Her face paled. Mom said she was 17 when she said you were the result of assault, that she couldn't. She lied. I showed them the birth certificate Terry had obtained through legal channels. She was 21. My birth certificate lists father as unknown, but there's no police report, no evidence of assault. She lied to make herself sympathetic. Gilbert set down his coffee, hands shaking. Why would she lie to us? Because the truth is uglier, I said. Terry's investigation had uncovered something devastating. I laid the evidence before my siblings in that coffee shop, watching their world crumble. Your mother worked at Mabel's diner, I began. She dated the owner's son, Travis Malone. When she got pregnant with me, he wanted marriage. He didn't. She wanted freedom, wanted to party, wanted to live her 20s without responsibility. I showed them Travis's statement, obtained after Terry tracked him down in another state. Diane told me she was getting an abortion, I read aloud. I gave her money for it. 2 weeks later, she showed up at the diner saying it was done. I never knew there was a baby until I saw the news 30 years later about the fire station baby who became a tech entrepreneur. When I saw Kennedy's face, I knew immediately. She looks exactly like Diane did at that age. Sandra's eyes filled with tears. No. Travis wanted to file a police report, I continued. But the statute of limitations had passed. He's willing to testify that Diane deliberately abandoned me to continue her lifestyle. 3 years later, she dated your father, Gilbert. Got pregnant with you. That time, she decided to keep the baby. What changed? Gilbert whispered. Your father had money, stability, a house. Everything Travis couldn't offer at 19. I pulled out more documents. She calculated which pregnancy benefited her most. I didn't make the cut. The silence was suffocating. Finally, Sandra spoke, voice breaking. She told us you were a closed adoption. That she'd made the responsible choice, giving you a better life than she could provide. She showed us fake paperwork and everything. She lied, I said simply. About all of it. 3 days after our coffee meeting, Sandra called me hysterical. She's denying everything. Sandra sobbed. I confronted her with what you showed us and she called you a liar. She said you fabricated evidence to turn us against her. Gilbert believes her. He's always been her golden child and he refuses to see the truth. I met Sandra at a park, away from cameras and potential eavesdroppers. She'd aged years in 72 hours, exhaustion etched into her young face. I went through her documents, Sandra said, handing me a manila folder. I found your original birth certificate, the real one before she sealed the records. And I found diaries, Kennedy. She wrote about you. My hands trembled as I opened the journal, dated 30 years ago. The baby cries constantly. I can't do this. Travis wants to play house, wants me to be some perfect mother. I'm 21. I have my whole life ahead of me. This was a mistake. I need to fix it. Days later, I left her at the fire station this morning. I feel nothing. No guilt, no sadness. Just relief. I'm free now. I can start over. A week after, Travis is devastated. Good. He'll never find out the truth. I told him the abortion went through. New life starts now. I couldn't breathe. The casual cruelty was suffocating. There's more, Sandra whispered. Years later, after she had Gilbert and me, she wrote about you again. About seeing your scholarship announcement, tracking your success. She wrote, "That baby I threw away became something. Maybe I should have kept her instead of Gilbert." I felt Sandra's hand on my shoulder as tears finally came, hot and angry and grief-stricken. The next hearing was warfare. Richard presented Diane's diaries, Travis's testimony, and bank records showing she'd been financially stable for decades. Beverly Brooks fought back desperately, but the evidence was damning. Judge Patricia Langston, no relation to Captain Langston, was a stern black woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen every manipulation tactic in family court. "Mrs. Wilson," Judge Langston said, voice sharp as glass, "you abandoned your newborn infant in life-threatening conditions, then deliberately concealed her existence while raising 2 subsequent children. Now you're seeking financial compensation from the child you discarded. Explain to me why this court should entertain this lawsuit for even one more second." Diane stood and I saw her strategy shift in real time. She started crying, big performative sobs. "Your Honor, I was young and stupid. I made a terrible mistake that haunts me every day. But she's still my daughter. She's rich now and I'm struggling. Doesn't she owe me something for giving her life?" "You didn't give her life," Judge Langston snapped. "You gave her trauma. You gave her abandonment. You gave her 30 years of wondering why she wasn't good enough to keep. What you want isn't maternal, it's monetary." The judge turned to me. "Ms. Williams, you have a right to address this court." Richard tried to stop me, but I stood anyway. This moment was mine. "Your Honor, I built my company from nothing. I aged out of foster care at 18 with $200 and a bus pass. I worked 3 jobs while attending community college. I slept in my car during my junior year of university because I couldn't afford rent and tuition. Every dollar I earned came from blood, sweat, and determination that this woman in no way contributed to." My voice strengthened. "She wants credit for my success. He gets credit for my pain. Every milestone I hit alone. Every Mother's Day spent volunteering to avoid the memories. Every relationship I sabotaged because I couldn't trust love. That's her legacy. Not my millions." The courtroom was silent. "She doesn't get to abandon me twice. Once as a baby, again as a bank account." After the hearing, Terry called with information that changed everything. "Kennedy, sit down for this," she said urgently. "I've been digging into Beverly Brooks's involvement. This lawsuit wasn't Diane's idea. It was Beverly's. She sent me files showing Beverly Brooks specialized in exploitation cases, finding vulnerable people with successful estranged family members, then convincing them to sue. She worked on contingency, taking 40% of any settlement. Beverly found Diane through public record searches," Terry explained. "She's done this 17 times before. Most cases settle because defendants don't want public embarrassment. Beverly's made millions off family trauma." I felt sick. "So Diane's a puppet?" "Not exactly. Beverly approached her 6 months ago, pitched the lawsuit, promised easy money. Diane needed minimal convincing. But here's where it gets darker." Terry paused. "Beverly also contacted Gilbert and Sandra separately. She told them you'd cut off Diane maliciously, that you were cruel and selfish. She manufactured their involvement to strengthen the case." "Gilbert still believes her," I said bitterly. "Because Beverly's feeding him lies through fake social media accounts. She's creating evidence of your supposed cruelty, fake screenshots of texts you never sent, edited photos, completely fabricated stories. Gilbert sees this proof and thinks you're the villain. Can we expose this?" "I'm working on it. But Kennedy, Beverly has powerful connections. She's married to a state senator. This could get ugly." It was already ugly. But now I knew the full scope of the conspiracy. The question was, how far would Beverly go to win? And how far would I go to destroy her? The story leaked to the media. Beverly's doing, obviously. Suddenly, I was national news. Tech millionaire refuses to help birth mother. Headlines painted me as a heartless daughter abandoning a struggling parent. My company's investors called emergency meetings. Brand partners threatened to pull contracts. My reputation, built over 5 years of impeccable work, was crumbling because of a carefully orchestrated smear campaign. Gilbert gave an interview, tears in his eyes. Kennedy has all this money and won't help our mother. She's not the person she pretends to be. I watched it alone in my office at midnight, whiskey in hand. They're destroying you, Richard said, appearing in my doorway. We need to settle. Offer her $200,000, make this disappear. Absolutely not. Kennedy, be reasonable. I'm done being reasonable. I slammed the glass down. I survived abandonment, survived foster care, survived every person who told me I'd never amount to anything. I'm not giving her a single penny of blood money. My phone rang. Kennedy, Mom's in the hospital, she said, voice hollow. She collapsed during an interview. They're saying it's stress-related, but... She paused. I was there when it happened. Right before she collapsed, Beverly Brooks was coaching her on crying cues. Mom looked at Beverly and said, "How much longer do I have to play sick?" Then she saw me and collapsed for real. She's faking. I think the stress caught up with her. But Kennedy, she's not the victim here. None of them are. I'm testifying against her. I'm telling the court everything. Sandra, that'll destroy your relationship with Gilbert, with your whole family. You're my family too, Sandra said firmly. And you're the only one telling the truth. The courtroom was packed for the final hearing. Media trucks lined the streets. This had become the trial of the year. Abandoned baby versus birth mother, wealth versus poverty, obligation versus autonomy. Sandra took the stand, looking terrified but determined. I loved my mother, she testified, voice shaking. I defended her until I couldn't anymore. But Kennedy isn't the villain here. Mom is. She detailed the diaries, the lies, the manipulation. She didn't seek Kennedy out for love or reconciliation. She sought her out for money, coached by an attorney who specializes in exploitation. Beverly Brooks's cross-examination was brutal, but Sandra held firm. Then Travis Malone testified, describing Diane's deliberate deception 3 decades ago. She told me she'd gotten an abortion. I grieved that child for 30 years. Then I saw Kennedy's face on TV and realized Diane had lied about everything. Finally, I took the stand. I don't hate my birth mother, I said clearly. I pity her. She had a chance to know an incredible human being, herself, and she threw it away for temporary freedom. Now she wants to profit from the success she never contributed to. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for boundaries. Beverly Brooks approached, predatory. Ms. Williams, isn't it true you have $15 million while your biological mother struggles? My mother, I said coldly, is Linda Langston. She was my foster mother from age 8 to 18. She worked 2 jobs to give me stability. She taught me resilience. She showed up. Diane Wilson is the woman who gave birth to me. That's biology, not motherhood. And no, I don't owe her a penny. The courtroom erupted. Judge Langston banged her gavel. Order. I'm ready to rule. Judge Langston's ruling was swift and brutal. I'm dismissing this lawsuit with prejudice, she declared. Furthermore, I'm ordering Beverly Brooks to pay Ms. Williams's legal fees and sanctioning her for unethical conduct. An investigation into her practice will be forwarded to the state bar. Diane's face crumpled. Gilbert stormed out. Sandra squeezed my hand. But I felt empty. Victory didn't heal anything. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but I ignored them. I drove to Fire Station 47 where it all began, where Captain Langston had saved my life 30 years ago. Lisa Langston met me there, holding her father's journal. You won, she said gently. I survived, I corrected. Winning would mean having a mother who actually wanted me. My dad wanted you to have this. She handed me a letter, dated a week before his death. He wrote it hoping you'd find your way back here someday. I opened it with shaking hands. Dear Kennedy, if you're reading this, you've learned about your origins. I'm sorry for the pain that knowledge brings. But listen to me, kid, you were never abandoned. You were left with people who would fight for you. And you became exactly who you were meant to be, strong, resilient, successful. Your birth mother's choices don't define you. Your response to those choices does. And sweetheart, you responded by building an empire. That's not revenge. That's resurrection. I hope you find peace. I hope you find family, the chosen kind that actually shows up. And I hope you know that every time I polished that old fire truck, I thought of the baby girl who deserved so much better. You got better. You became better. With love and pride, Captain Dalton Langston. I stood in front of Station 47, clutching the letter as tears finally came. Not bitter ones but healing ones. Diane hadn't won. But more importantly, she hadn't destroyed me. I called Sandra. Want to grab dinner? I think it's time we build the family we both deserved. I'd love that, she said, crying and laughing simultaneously. I never saw Diane again. Gilbert cut off contact, choosing his mother's delusions over truth. But Sandra and I built something real. Sisterhood forged not in biology but in shared trauma and mutual healing. My company thrived. I established a foundation for foster youth, funded by the millions Diane had tried to steal. Every scholarship bore Captain Langston's name. 3 years later, I married someone who understood that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. My wedding photos included Sandra Linda Langston, and dozens of friends who'd chosen to love me. Diane sent a card. I burned it unread. Some wounds never fully heal. The little girl left at a fire station still lives inside me, still wonders why she wasn't enough. But she's surrounded now by people who prove, every single day, that she was always enough. He was always worthy. He was always loved. And she didn't need her birth mother's validation to know it. If this story resonated with you, please share it. And remember, the family you build is more powerful than the family you're born into. Don't let anyone exploit your success for their redemption. You owe nothing to people who abandoned you, not money, not time, not forgiveness. Leave a comment below sharing your own story of chosen family. Let's build a community of survivors who became victors. And subscribe for more stories of resilience, boundaries, and empowerment.